All right. I believe we are live. So, hello, everybody out there in the internet. Thank you for tuning in. As you probably know, this is our virtual GBO Beer Fest. The Beer Fest is something that, JJ's been going on for 2 years, 3 years?
This would have been our fourth year.
Fourth year, a beer fest that we put on in the downtown Emporia, where we have several people come out and show off some of their best beers. And when we canceled GBO, and that was one of the things that I heard a lot of people were disappointed because they really enjoyed coming out and trying all the different types of beers. And I thought, you know what, let's see if we can do something online similar. And I reached out to some fine brewmasters, and they said, yes, we need to do this. We love talking about our beers. So that's what we did. We have them online right now. And we have with us BJ Hunt from Walnut River. And then if you've come to Emporia often, you'll recognize JJ from Radius Brewing Company.
Cheers.
We have Scotty and BJ Howe from Beer Craft. So they're going to join us and talk a little bit about the craft of brewing beer. If you're watching this on YouTube or even on Facebook, if you have questions about brewing beer, please put them in the comments. I'll relay it to these gentlemen and see if we can get some insight into how to craft some beer. But first, let's do like a even more in-depth introduction. Let's start with you, JJ. Tell us a little bit about your background brewing and how you got started.
Okay. Well, I'm JJ. I'm brewer and one of the owners here at Radius. Started brewing as a hobby, and it just kind of made sense to me. And to keep it short, just kind of fell into the opportunity to open this business with a good friend of mine, and we've been going for about 6 years now. We actually we opened, I believe, either during GBO or the Thursday before GBO started 6 years ago. So we've been pretty tight into GBO since the beginning. Yeah, the gist.
Nice. BJ Hunt, let's go over to you. Tell us a little bit about Walnut River.
So Walnut River, 3 of us, and there's Rick and Travis and myself, and I do all the business, so it's not, I don't do all the fun stuff like the other guys, but pay all the taxes and, sales and all that stuff. But I am pretty good at tasting beer, and that's where it matters, right?
Yes.
Rick does all the brewing, and he's been brewing for 25 years and been to brewing school, and he's a BJCP beer judge. And then Travis is a microbiologist, actually, and he does all the lab work and all the packaging, and we're lucky to have him with that too. So kind of a good between the 3 of us, and we've been around like a minute long radius. I think you guys were down on our very first brew, so yeah, cheers to that.
Nice. All right, Scotty and BJ over at Beercraft, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Okay, Beercraft is a startup there. We've got a building, and we're putting it together right now. We're going to be basically a 5-barrel tap room set up, looking at most of the beer being sold across the bar, and some carryouts and growlers and crawlers. And we service a community of what, 20,000?
20,000. A little bit lower than Emporia, I guess.
Yeah.
Emporia's got 22,000, right? Or so.
And we're going to be focusing on the traditional European beer styles that may be hard to find. And
what town, guys?
excuse me?
What town?
It's McAllister, Oklahoma.
Nice.
I mean, I knew that, but
What is it?
So what? I forgot to ask an important question. JJ, what are you drinking right now?
I've got a Rumor Has It IPA right now. It's just kind of our standard house IPA.
Nice. And BJ, what do you got?
Rearranged. It's an orange IPA.
Nice. And Beercraft, what do you guys got?
Well, we're going with the classic Pilsner Quell.
Yeah.
Czech Pilsner.
Nice.
Nice.
Beauty.
And if anybody's curious, I've got my bottles of Samuel Adams. So I asked Derek earlier, Derek Savior, of course, Glassbone Open, or DD, Derek Savior. I said, are they going to make fun of me because I have Sam Adams and they're going to have all their fancy stuff? And he said, actually, that's probably a good place to start. Is that brewmasters don't make fun of people when they drink domestic beers, right? Am I right? I mean, you can appreciate all beers.
Hey, we're just glad people are drinking beer.
There you go. There you go. So if you're watching this on Facebook or YouTube, put some questions in the comments and I'll relay these to the Brewmasters. But I have a couple questions to kind of get things started. BJ, tell us a little bit about how your beer is connected to your local area.
Oh man. Well, it starts with the water actually. And that's the whole reason that the brewery is in El Dorado. The municipal water supply, perfect for brewing beer. The pH is spot on. The limestone lines the lake, and then we have a great, really good relationship with the water guys. So if they say, "Hey, we're running free chlorine for 2 weeks," they give us a call because it's Warbeard, and works out really well for us. So we know what's happening all the time with our water, and so we just do a carbon filter, and then we're off to the race. And that's literally from the basics. I mean, that is really how we're connected with the community and the whole reason we're there. So
nice. What about you, JJ? How are you guys connected with Emporia?
Oh man, it's a big question. We didn't pick Emporia and decide to, we didn't come to town to open a brewery. We already lived here. We love the community, and wanted to add something to it. And we just like everything about this place, the vibrant downtown, the Flint Hills just out our back door, the awesome sense of community around here is awesome. And the huge events. GBO is a giant thing for us. Then Dirty Cans of Bike Race, of course, is another thing that really makes Emporia unique and something that we really enjoy about it. I could go on and on about how we interact with the community and how much we like it, but it's just an awesome place to be, and we hope we can contribute a little bit to that.
Nice. And Beercraft, how what's the connection between you guys and McAllister?
Well, there's a couple of us involved, and I mean, I take pride in being a McAllister native. After being introduced to the beer business, I really wanted to bring something back to the community like that from my travels and seeing the world and all that. And it's just fitting in with all the migrants or immigration that started in our community with coal miners and the Italians and Germans that, a whole bunch of
Czechs, Poles.
Yeah.
It'd be cool to bring back some flavors to try and, kind of tie yourself to and, put yourself, I don't know. I think it's just going to be a really cool
connection.
Yeah, I like that. So yeah, we've got already on YouTube, we got some people that obviously some people that have been to Emporia, because I got some questions for you already, JJ. You ready? Someone said, for the last few years, Radius hasn't had peach pie on tap. It is one of the best sours I've ever had to drink. Is there any plans to bring it back?
Well, first, thank you. Yeah, I mean, there's always a chance we'll bring a beer back. That one was a really good one. And yeah, I mean, I do kind of get hung up on doing, in a cycle, but no, I appreciate people reminding me of beers that I might have forgot about. That one will definitely come back.
Nice. So let's jump to BJ Hunt. Tell us a little bit about the first beer that you ever put together, you ever crafted. Tell us how that went.
missed just a little bit of that. Go one more time there, Bobby. Sorry.
Oh, tell us about the first beer you ever crafted. How did that go?
Not well. It was drinkable is not the word. But it was Mr. Beer Kit, so it was highly professional. But yeah, no, it I think it had alcohol, and that's about it. And so yeah, that's how that went.
Nice. What about you, JJ? You remember the first time you brewed a beer?
I do. It was a brown ale. I did it on my stovetop from a kit that I bought at a pretty shady seeming homebrew store. And I drank it all, about 2 cases of it, probably about 2 weeks to a month too early. And, all of my friends told me it was great, but I'm pretty sure it was garbage.
What about beer crafters? What's your memory of your first beer?
Oh God. Well, I guess I'm the old man here. This goes back to 1988. Whoa. But a guy I work with said, "Hey, I know how to make beer," and we said, "Okay, hey, it's a good idea." And so he had some dented old malt can and had a packet of probably bread yeast or whatever was glued to the top of them back in the day, and we boiled it up and we choked it down, and it was hideous. It was, but it piqued a curiosity in me, and I guess that's the amazing thing is I kept at it, and after a couple years, I got some books, and then of course the advent of real ingredients and pure yeast culture. So we had one of those aha moments. And the Celestial Choir opened up, and I was hooked after that. But yeah, getting over that first hurdle was quite a ordeal.
Nice. So you've been doing it for quite some time now. I don't know anything about brewing, so I don't know if has it changed quite a bit over the years?
Oh, absolutely.
What people use. I'm sure what people use has changed, but have any of the process changed from when you first started?
Well, I think the biggest thing is the availability of knowledge and the raw materials. Because back in the day, you were pretty limited on what you could acquire. And again, there was a handful of homebrew books out, and they were really basic. And like I said, nowadays it's just completely, it's a different world.
I imagine just like with anything else, with the internet, the world's a lot more connected. So like you said, there's a lot more sharing of knowledge and sharing of mistakes that people can learn from and stuff like that. It's pretty cool. JJ, we got another question for you, a Radius fan. When am I going to be able to get Slight Headwind in a store in Colorado?
Ooh, not soon. I don't know. We do hope to eventually do some distribution, but getting outside of the state will probably be a while. And honestly, getting into Colorado, as dense as the brewing scene is there, it's not even something that I've really given serious consideration to. And BJ Hunt could probably speak to that because they do some interstate distribution.
Yeah, but not
does that take it to another level, trying to get out of state when it comes to distribution?
Yeah, for sure. Because when you do distribution just in the state, you don't have to deal with the TTB on the national level. You just deal with the state of Kansas and the ABC. But we're in Missouri and Wyoming, and we certainly sell most of our beer. 60% of our beer is sold within 60 miles of the brewery. But going to other states, you have to have a national okay, if you will, on all your beers. So
now explain to me what the TTB is. I'm assuming it's some organization that regulates
it's like the taxing arm of the ATF, essentially, but they're the ones that regulate alcohol. So Trade and Tax Bureau, Tax and Trade Bureau,
Gotcha.
One of those. Anyway.
Let's see. Someone wants to know from everybody, what's your favorite beer you've ever brewed? And the craziest flavor? We'll start with you, Beercraft.
Well, I guess I would have to go back to that first Munich style Helles that where everything I had temperature control and a pure yeast strain and German hops and malts, and everything just clicked. And because that was truly memorable. I said, if I can do this, it's game on now.
Now, what's the craziest combination you ever put together?
Well, yeah, topped on that.
Yeah, the production brewery I was working at, we had some outlandish combinations on the improved stouts. It was pretty cool to be a part of. Brownies, there was brownies,
Yeah.
and there was toasted marshmallow. There was,
Oh my gosh.
there was all kinds. Candy bars, a lot of fermentables, unfermentables. It's cool, man.
Wow.
Yeah, it's pretty wild stuff.
What about you, JJ? JJ, what's like something that sticks out in your mind is the best one you've ever brewed, or one of the better ones?
Probably, gosh, got a black IPA called Infuscation, and that just kind of hits everything for me. As far as quality of beer, it might be my favorite beer I've ever brewed. We don't do it very often, probably once a year. Craziest beer. So we've got a beer we brew also probably a couple times a year called Jose. It's an amber ale brewed with a bunch of smoked malt, lactose, brown sugar, and fresh jalapenos.
Whoa.
It's an old homebrew recipe that I came up with that I was trying to make a beer that tasted like jalapeno poppers for some reason. And it doesn't really taste like jalapeno poppers, but it's pretty dang delicious and probably one of our most requested beers.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, I hope some of these people watching are taking notes so that they can send some requests in for next GBO. BJ Hunt, what's one of your more favorite brews you've had?
The gingerbread stout was a lot of fun, and that was actually pretty funny because we couldn't find a lot of ginger, so we had to go. We tried like Dillon's and Walmart, and they didn't have enough ginger. There's an Asian market though that had a lot of ginger. We bought like 20 pounds. And the lady just looked at me and shook her head when I bought so much ginger, but it was fantastic. We had cocoa nibs and anyway, and it was a nice stout, just a fantastic Christmas beer. As far as different, we did a mole, and it was a porter, also with cocoa nibs, but it was with medium strength hatch chilies, and it was really different, but it was really quite good too.
Awesome.
Nice. We have a question from Facebook. Someone wants to know if you guys use Beersmith for your recipes.
I actually do.
Oh, okay. To explain, what's Beersmith?
It's a brewing software that essentially you can plug in ingredients and it'll do a lot of the math for you as far as what to expect out of the beer, I guess, in a really brief description. So it just kind of helps me keep track of recipes and everything.
I got you. That's pretty cool. One question is, what's a brew that gave you the most challenge? We'll go back to you, Beercraft.
Boy, it would have to be that higher gravity.
Yeah. I cut my teeth on a 15 barrel system, which is 465 gallon.
Yeah.
465 gallons at a time. And one of the recipes had like 1,800 pounds of malt, 1,700 pounds of malt. I can't remember. The bulk porter was a big one, and then an imperial stout. But the mash tun, which will probably spike some more questions. The mash tun was so full on the initial mash in that we had to wait until the malt had settled before we could put the sparge arm on to start sparging it when we were transferring the wort from the mash tun to the kettle. It was
Underwater sparging.
yeah, it was crazy.
Yeah.
Wow. So I guess you learned some
So
lessons on that.
it was
Huh?
a physical attribute for me more than like it was just there's a lot of malt. Even sacks in the mill and then stirring it in the mash tun. It was
Good front, yeah.
it was big.
Nice. What about you, BJ? What's a challenging one that you did?
Anything with a stuck mash, because as he said, there aren't enough rice holes out there.
Yeah.
You know, and we were running a system twice the size of what he's talking about, and you can imagine 930 gallons of of beer, but I mean you're running a couple thousand pounds of grain, and if it's stuck, that's the rest of your day, buddy. So
Yeah, it's gonna be a fight.
Add some
we
more
right, yeah, exactly. We try to calculate that nicely in Beersmith, but it doesn't always calculate for stuck mash.
Yeah.
What about you, JJ?
Oh man, well I'm kind of in the same boat as these guys, except for I would say mine was the first pumpkin beer I ever made. I'm on a much smaller scale than these guys were talking about, so we're only brewing about 90 gallons at a time. But you put 40, 50 pounds of pumpkin puree in your mash tun, and that's a one-time experience.
Oh, funny. Someone had a specific question. Has anybody experimented with spontaneous fermentation with either a cool ship or harvesting local wild yeasts? Anyone on here?
I really haven't. I've looked into it a lot. We don't have room for a cool ship or anything, of course, but it's something I've definitely considered, just kind of on a fun homebrew scale. But we're so starved for beer space around here that's not something that's feasible.
Now, what is the cool ship?
Basically, it's a really shallow pool that you pump your worts into after you boil it. And it cools that way rather than using a heat exchanger. Traditional lambic breweries use them. And then ideally the beer is inoculated with just the local microflora, and that's what ferments the beer.
Is it just a different process, or do you get a different taste to it, or?
Oh yeah, with what all of us are mostly doing, we're buying a lab-grown culture of yeast, and that's what's fermenting the beer. With the cool ship and the spontaneous fermentation, it's just whatever's alive in the air wherever you are, and all that microflora is different no matter where you're at, and some of it works out great. Like Brussels is a good example of a place that the stuff alive in the air there makes some fantastic beer.
Someone had a question. Oh, go ahead.
We've got a couple batches of kettle soured beers in the works that got a wild yeast on them, so it's going to be cool to see how it turns out.
Yeah, if you're exposing it to the open air, a lot of it, the success or failure has to do with the time of year you're doing it. Around here, February seems to be a really good month.
Yeah.
August, not so much.
Someone wanted to know if you guys ever brewed with Pernod.
Never heard of it.
Never heard? No one's ever heard of Pernod? Just says Purno.
How do you spell it?
Purno.
I have not aware of that one.
Interesting.
Is
Okay,
it an ad
let's
zone?
see. I don't know. It just says, have the brewers ever made Pernod? So, not sure.
Guess not.
Not on purpose.
Hey, Bobby, something I might throw in,
Yeah.
just to, I don't know, a little bit about why all of, these specific guys are here.
Yeah, please do.
Last year, Radius teamed up with Walnut River Brewing to brew the Birdie Pills for GBO. It's the beer, the GBO. And we also did a collaboration with Prairie Artisan Ales, which is where BJ Howell used to work. And we actually teamed up with them on the Slight Headwind beer 2 years ago, and then Brutal Headwind last year. So these other guys here, on the chat have actually brewed beers for GBO before, and that's kind of the connection, why they're in here.
Very cool. Thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. So I would imagine that working at a brewery or starting a brewery, that it wasn't something that you maybe accidentally stumbled upon. It was something that you wanted to do. But after doing it for the years that you've done it, is it different than you thought it would be? BJ Hunt, what are your thoughts?
Yes, it's a little bit different. You don't start out like Sam Adams, just to throw that out there. And it's we always kind of joke. We're like, you make that jump as an entrepreneur, and you knit your parachute on the way down, and we're knitting like hell. But it's just one of those things that, in some aspects, it's done really well. Don't get me wrong, but in other aspects, you're like, wow, why in the world did I do this? And it ultimately, your own, you want to work 80 hours for yourself, and rather than 40 for somebody else. And so that's what it comes down to.
What about you, JJ?
No, I never dreamed or anticipated I'd do this for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was kind of one of those things that me and Gus were sitting around drinking some of my homebrew, and it's kind of, hey, want to open a restaurant? You want to brew beer at a restaurant? And then it kind of became a reality, after about 4 years of planning and stuff. But so I never really had any preconceived notions of what it was going to be like. But it's been awesome. I mean, it's a blast. I never could have dreamed that I'd get into an industry that's this much fun with this many cool people. It's definitely been amazing.
Nice. And Beercraft guys, what are your thoughts? Is it everything you dreamed it would be?
Man, I stumbled across the brewing career through cooking at a restaurant, and then turned to a professional brewery, or like a craft brewery, and along the way developed the love for it and the passion for it, and seeing all aspects of it, or almost all aspects of it, it was really a driving force for me to want to do something on my own and have my own beer out there, and just to have it, and then to do it as a career, as a passion for yourself, hang out with friends and drink good beer. That's what it's all about for me. Like I don't know, I've met some awesome people along the way, and some of my business partners now, and it's been a cool trip, and I just want to keep it going. So Scotty.
Okay, go ahead, Scotty.
Since 88.
Now it's a second career. So yeah, keep the train rolling.
Yep.
Someone thinks that earlier that person thought they meant Pruno,
yeah.
or prison wine.
That's what our
Okay,
BJ
so
Hunt,
out of you.
Down, we can go find out from them.
Maybe we can do a collab with the Oklahoma State.
I mean, we have El Dorado Correctional right in town. I mean, we should do a collab right there.
There you go.
Nice. All right. Let's see. So how do you feel? Let's get from each of you. How do you feel about beer trends that happened? Hazy IPA seemed to be all the rage last summer. Now sours are everywhere. Do you find yourself trying to follow the trends or try to go against the trends? We'll start with you, BJ Hunt.
It depends on the trend. Honestly, all right. So we're older guys, so we don't necessarily follow the new fashionable stuff. I don't have rips in my jeans on purpose, things like that. So basically, I'm not that cool. But we will make an occasional sour. We will make a hazy IPA, but that's really more in-house, not to be made for production purposes. Because, and a part of it, we only make beers that we like to drink, and we just keep it simple that way. And so some trends we will follow, but some we won't. We have not jumped on the seltzer trend at all. That could be a bad mistake on our end. I don't know, but so far none of us are reaching in the fridge at night thinking, "Ooh, a seltzer." So I don't know.
Do you find it, because you mentioned that you brew not just for your state but out of state, do you find it constricting as you get bigger that you have to tailor more toward a generic audience rather than more niche? Does that make sense what I'm asking? More niche tastes?
And luckily the beers that, the IPAs, the porters, the Irish reds that we brew, those are typically fairly mainstream as far as craft beer goes. So that kind of helps us with that. But we will do some, like I said, one-offs and push out 30 barrels of that. And but usually it's just a one and done kind of thing. So
got you. All right, Scotty and BJ over there at Beardcraft, you're fairly new or working toward opening or working toward new. What are your thoughts on following trends or not following trends?
Well, like I said, we're going to focus on the traditional European classical styles from, English porter, ales, German lager, Kolsch, alt beer, Bavarian Weizen. We'll have some, we'll have an IPA tap, obviously, because it's so popular. But the classic styles are classic for a reason, and they never really seem to go out of fashion. We'll have a small pilot system to do some one-off batches and have the tap handles full, and the customers kind of drive things.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people thought their flagship beer was going to be this or that, and turned out to be something they hadn't planned. So you just never know till you know.
Yeah, that makes sense. So JJ, having a restaurant in Radius means that you probably tailor to a more general audience. Is that something that controls what you brew, or you just kind of brew it and see what people think? Or
we have by commercial brewery standards, we have a really small system, and that gives us a lot of flexibility. We have 5 beers that we try and have on pretty much all the time that are more traditional, for lack of a better term. But I always try and keep at least one sour and some hazy IPAs, and I try and always have a unique blend. I like the trends. I think some of them get overblown sometimes, but there's great examples within pretty much every trend. So when we do, try and jump on a trendy style, I try and make sure that it's a great example of it. But yeah, so we kind of try and run a mix of both. But like I said, having that small system really gives us the flexibility to do that.
Is there a style of beer that you just don't like to drink or make?
Bad beer.
Fair. That's fair. That's fair. Nice. Very fair. Let's see. Let's do a little bit of education, and this will even help me a little bit. What's the difference between different styles of beer? What makes an IPA, and what makes a pale? Beercraft, you tackle that one?
Well, if for the edification of everyone, there's the Brew Judge certification program, and they have categorized a bunch of styles, and you can go to bjcp.org, and they have, 70 278 different general styles and subclassifications. But the India Pale Ale was originally came from England, and the story was that it was sent on the ships to India. Mitch Steele wrote a book on that, kind of got rid of some of the old legends about it, but it's generally going to be a hoppier beer. It'll be a stronger hop bitterness. It'll generally be a bigger in body and alcohol content. And the American Pale Ale is kind of its weaker cousin. I guess that would be a generic description. But if you go to the bjcp.org website, it'll go into all the detail and break it out and compare and contrast.
Nice. All right, we have a question from Porter Yaks. I'm sure if you're from Emporia, you might recognize that name. Yeah.
Porter.
He want
Next question.
Next question.
Oh no. Porter wants to know, how do you determine which hops to mix to come up with different flavor profiles?
I usually send
AJ?
him a text.
Oh yeah. Nice. What do you say to that, JJ?
I just kind of throw stuff in and hope for the best. But no, I mean, all the different hops obviously have different characteristics, and some beers I want it to be more on the dank, aggressive, piney side, so I'll tend towards those types of hops. Sometimes I want a combination of that and mangoes and passion fruit, so I'll throw some Citra or Mosaic in with my Simcoe, and it's all, brewing's all about balance or intentionally being out of balance. But yeah, it's just kind of taking things you like and putting them together, and trying to make them complement each other instead of compete.
What about you, BJ Hunt? What's kind of your process?
Well, it's usually a three-way text that goes on forever and ever, but it's when we're developing a beer, we will actually take and split it out from the big system. We'll take it over to the small brew system. We have a 2-barrel, and we'll divide it out. In fact, that's what we did with a GBO beer, and ended up using Mosaic and Equinaut, and it's pretty tasty, if I might say so myself. So we're going to tweak a little for next year, but we'll even run three basically base beer, if you will, at that point, and then run different dry hop in each fermenter, just to see the differences. And then you can sell those as a flight, which is nice because you can do those in house. Now that's way aside from production, and to make that distinction, production's got to be the same every single time. If it's going into the same can, it's got to be tasting exactly the same. But this is more for in-house and just fun and testing. And so, and then and I don't have it, but there's a hop wheel, and it kind of goes through all the different hops and says, this one's piney and this one's dank. I mean, and it goes through everything. It's really helpful to have, but I don't have it in front of me. So.
What about you, BJ and Scotty? Anything different to add to the process?
On most of the stuff that I've been involved with, I just try to go stylistically correct. If we're trying to brew an IPA and we're wanting to go like West Coast, try to simulate what's going on over there, or when we brew the New England IPA, try to clone it, or use some of the hops for that. I've been parts of some experiments. We did casks, with different dry hops that were pretty cool. But.
Yeah, we try to use the traditional hop for the style of beer, basically. And then again, if you're trying something new and experiment, again, just get out the pilot system and start experimenting. You find something you like.
Ooh.
Our pilot system, we brew 10 gallons at a time. Scotty's got a 15 gallon, 10 gallon
Yeah.
batch out of his, and we got another one in the garage, 10 gallons at a time. You know, kind of like what Jeremy said, we've got the luxury of some flexibility with the smaller systems. So
If you make a mistake, it's not as costly.
Nice.
couple growler fills and you can forget about it. So
Someone wanted to know y'all's thoughts on extract brewing. Good for starting brewing or start all grain?
Well, it's kind of a double-edged sword. If you'd asked me 10 or 15 years ago, I would say just start out all grain all the time. But the folks making extract, they've upped their game. They really have. So for a home brewer, somebody just starting out brewing, it's a lot more convenient. If you like it, it shortens your brew day. And if you like it, you can step up to all grain. But going all grain, you'll have a lot more flexibility. You have a lot more control over the end product. So it's kind of like making a cake from scratch versus buying the Betty Crocker cake mix.
I'd pretty much echo that. If you've never done it before, I would absolutely start with an extract batch. One, you don't have to buy nearly as much equipment, so that's good. You want to find out if you even like the process before you dive in completely. So yeah, I would definitely, if you're just starting out from scratch, try a couple extract batches first. You can make good beer with those. They're not going to be your beer. It doesn't give you a whole lot of flexibility, but it's a good way to start and see if you like it. If you want to dive in all grain, find a buddy that's brewing all grain first, hang out with them for a brew day, and, see the process before you buy all the equipment to do it.
Very cool. Very cool. Someone wants to know, what are your thoughts on breweries like the Alchemist, who only brewed one beer for a very long time, the Heady Topper? And do you think it kills? I lost the rest of the question. Do you think it kills creativity, or if it ain't broke, don't fix it? Who's got thoughts on that?
I kind of like the ain't broke, don't fix it kind of thing, or, like Scotty said earlier, some of these classic styles, and, we've got to see it. Hundreds of years, people have been drinking Pilsners and gathering around tables and, having a good time. It's, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah.
Like, support your local families.
It works for them.
Yeah.
Anybody else think differently?
No, I would just add that it obviously works for the Alchemists. Those guys are huge and they're cranking out amazing beer. I like to brew more than one kind of beer, so that's not something I would want to do, but they've proven that it's a business model that can work, and they've actually spawned several other breweries in that area too. They're killing it.
Nice. Let's see.
And I would like to add, they're probably not driving an old Toyota Camry with 150,000 miles on it either. Just saying. So,
If someone is looking to get into home brewing, what's an initial investment look like?
Well, you can get into it pretty cheaply. I mean, you need $100 worth of accessories down at your homebrew supply store. You can make, I started out with 2 plastic pails as my mash tun, drilled a bunch of holes in one and put some cheesecloth or a pillowcase or something in there. And it was pretty inexpensive, pretty rudimentary, but again, you can make good beer with it. It just is, as long as you have the sanitation and the procedure. It's like any kind of hobby. You can spend a little bit of money, or you can spend a whole lot of money on it. It just depends on what you want to do. So best thing to do is get with the local homebrew club and just hang out, and you'll save yourself a lot of time, money, and effort learning everything the hard way. You can vicariously learn from the mistakes of others, and you'll have somebody to share beer with and help drink if you make any bad beer, you can
pawn it off
on them.
Gotcha. Sorry about the dogs barking in the background, guys. That's what happens during coronavirus when you got to do stuff from home. So go ahead, BJ.
To echo those guys, Ken Grossman, who owns and runs Sierra Nevada, I mean, that guy built so much stuff in his brewery, so you don't have to go out and buy the best and nicest new stainless stuff to do it. Just start doing it. The biggest thing is going to be cleaning anyway. That's where most of your time is going to go. So, get with somebody, get a mentor. Shoot, come brew with us for a day. We'll let you. Just one of those things. If you really are interested, reach out and talk to some people, and then figure out what you need. But yeah, you can get into it reasonably priced. So,
what's a reasonable expectation of how long till you? Okay, so let's say you go from your first brew to something that you're relatively satisfied with, as far as saying, "Oh, I can brew beer well." What's a reasonable expectation of that timeline?
Oh, that's going to vary for everybody.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
it's just such a process to go through?
Yeah. I mean, if you can bake bread, you can make beer. But some people catch on to that faster than others. And so somebody's second batch could be amazing. Somebody's 20th batch could be one of those you have to pawn off on people.
Gotcha.
It's just all about, how you understand the process, and, how, it's different for everybody. Kind of like disc golf.
Gotcha. There you go. All right. So Derek Savory has a direct line to me, and he has a question for you, JJ. He wants to know, when can we finally taste that barley wine you've been aging seemingly forever?
I said I was going to release it for GBO, so I guess 2021.
2021, huh? Okay. So it looks like Derek has to wait a little bit longer.
But I'll keep tasting it for you. There will be a little left.
Nice.
Man.
Nice. Okay, let's go around the room. What is your personal favorite beer that you don't make yourself, and what beer is on your wish list that you have never tried? Scotty and BJ.
Boy, that's a tough one. Which beer that we have never made?
You don't make yourself, that's your favorite, and then maybe or what is a beer on your wish list that you've never tried?
Okay. Well, I guess I've never tried the Finnish Sati. I think that would be interesting.
Where's that out of?
Finland.
Oh wow! Okay, there you go. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it's basically a farmhouse type ale that goes back centuries, that they make the spruce tip filter and everything, and it's kind of they make it and it's consumed relatively quickly after it's been consumed. They usually make it for special events, weddings.
Wow.
That sort of thing. But I've never had the real thing from the farm. So there's been a few breweries in the States that have done it experimentally.
Yeah. What about you, BJ? How?
Man, I've been real fortunate in my brewing career so far that I've got to taste a lot of awesome beers. And, I think that if there was a unicorn out there, Scotty just broke one out.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, this is a brewery we visited in Bamberg, Germany.
Oh, wow.
I've been wanting a can from this brewery since I saw them posted on Facebook, and Scotty just did the damn thing.
Man,
So
your wish came true.
Nice.
yeah, I don't have an answer for this question anymore.
Nice, nice. What about you, JJ?
Dude.
Yeah. So we're doing favorite beer and beer that I've never had.
Yeah.
You know, if I had to pick one kind of beer to drink the rest of my life, it would probably be a Belgian Goose. Dre Fontaine's probably my favorite producer of those. But yeah, then Canyon, Boom. There's a lot of great ones. Kind of like BJ, I've had the opportunity to try a lot of different beers, so I don't know. I don't have that bucket list beer that's occurring to me right now.
I got you.
But there's obviously a lot of great beers that I've never had.
What about you, BJ Hunt? Anyone in particular that you've been wanting to try?
Well, as far as the favorite, just general that I've had, I'm a fan of Ska's Modus Operandi, and just for I don't say a day-to-day drinker, but just for keeping a little something in the fridge for a beer that we don't make. And then the Utopias, I've had the 03, but I'd really like to try, 4 or 5, and they make it every other year, just as a flight. So just to see the differences between, and I've never actually done that. I've had just the once, and that was actually, we cracked that open. Rick bought it in 03, and we opened it in 13 when we started the brewery. So it was 10 years old, and which was awesome. But yeah, I'd like to try a flight of that and see the nuances. And then JJ's barley wine, of course.
One of these days.
All right.
I haven't
get
heard
there.
about this barley wine, JJ.
It's
Yeah.
You didn't even talk about it up there. Like, oh, I got this barley wine.
Hey, next time you come up,
Yeah.
Nice. We got
full nail.
a question. We got a question from Nicholas on Facebook. What different flavors do I get from different types of malts? And then what factors do I need to think of when formulating my grain bill? So what kind of flavors do I get from different types of malts?
There's some reference materials you can look at. I know the Environment Maltings has a spider diagram of the different types of malts. Generally, with your Pilsner or the malts that have been very lightly kilned, you'll get a much lighter flavor, a little bit of grain. And then as you get into the Vienna and the Munich, you'll have a little more flavor development as more heat and time has been applied. Again, you go moving into crystal malts and all the way over to chocolate malts, dark roasted malts where you get burnt flavor to offset some of the sweetness of the beer. I guess the only advice is to start out, go easy on the specialty malts when you start out. A lot of people like to, more is better, and it's not always the case. I remember years ago when I was brewing, we used to have in the upper Midwest very hard water, so I would pre-boil the water. And one night after a night on the town, I forgot to pre-boil my water. So the next morning I'm brewing, I thought, oh crap, oh well, dark roasted malts, it knocks down acid. I'll just put a little extra dark malt in there and get the pH down. And I kept testing and adding a little more and more, and it turned out to be quite roasty. So it ended up being, we took it to a college party, and if we poured 8 ounces from a flip top bottle into a pitcher and then filled it up with Old Milwaukee, it was pretty good. So it was dubbed Old Milwaukee Helper after that. And that's how we got rid of it. We had to choke it down that way. So start easy on specialty grains and work up.
Oh, come on. Everybody knows if you take a handful of chocolate malt, it tastes just like chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I tell you, one of the, you say that, BJ, man,
Yeah.
one of my favorite malts to eat while I was milling was probably like the Naked Oats. Like
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Naked Oats was really good, and probably Special B, like
Dude, I agree.
those two, and then
It's good on cereal.
it's good on cereal, and then probably Gambrinus Honey Malt. Like
Yeah.
I like the honey malt, man. It was
I think you just named my top three.
they're good. The honey malt, that's one of those, like Scotty said, you got to be careful how much you use because you can go overboard pretty quick on it.
Mhm.
Oh, yeah.
It'll
Well,
have
and like
lasting flavors on a beer. So
yeah.
All right, we got a question from the feed. This is from Taro. He says, for the brewmasters here, how does one create the creamy, thick mouth feel that is present in certain IPAs and almost most pastry stouts? And then he says, flaked oats. So how do you get that creamy in the IPAs?
I mean, oats and grains that have a lot of protein in them have a lot to do with that. The pastry stouts, they have a lot of lactose in them, which makes them thick. They also have really high finishing gravities, so there's just a whole lot of residual sugars in there that make them thick. But yeah, for the IPAs and stuff, it's primarily grains that are adding a lot of proteins, and with oats, some oils too.
Interesting. Cool. All right, gentlemen, we're coming up on the hour mark, so I want to be respectful of your time, but I want to thank you guys so much for tuning in. This is a lot of fun. I know I learned a lot, and I can see from the comments that people had a really good time learning about you guys a little bit more. If we can, let's go back around and just kind of tell us if we can follow you on Facebook, or how do we learn more about your particular brewery? We'll start with you, JJ.
Well, first, thanks for having us. It's obviously a bummer not to get to have the beer fest this year. That's always a really good time. Of course, all of GBO is a really good time. But yeah, I mean, we can sit and talk about beer all night. That's like one of the few things I'm good at. But yeah, I mean, Radius, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We're not very good at Twitter. But yeah, mostly just whenever you come to Emporia to play some disc golf, swing in, and I'll probably be here and have a beer and hang out.
Love it. What about you, Beercraft?
We've got the Facebook page, Beercraft. I think it's BIERKRAFT. I don't think that's what it is. But that's the Facebook page, and then we've got Instagram. It's Beercraft _ Brewery. There's not a lot of activity right now. I mean, we're building the brewery and we're doing test batches. So as some exciting news develops for us, we try to post it and get everybody online with it. But yeah, Beercraft on Facebook and Beercraft _ Brewery on Instagram.
Very cool. And BJ Hunt, how do we follow Walnut River?
Walnut River Brew on Instagram, or Poorhouse, and Poorhouse ICT, and then Facebook, Walnut River Brewing, or Poorhouse. And a lot like JJ, we're on Twitter, but it may be a few years before I see your comment. So, and then, any questions and stuff, actually, if you just send it to info@walnutriverbrewing.com, that actually hits Rick and Travis and I, all three of us, and whoever's field of expertise that question's in, we take it. So anyway, thanks for having us too, by the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah, most definitely. Pretty cool deal. Good thinking, Bobby.
Yeah.
The Glassbone Open is a great event, and all the ones that I've attended with the collabs and spectating It's a really good time. Y'all do a great job presenting it to the population, and I appreciate the invite tonight.
Absolutely. Very cool. Yeah. Thank you guys for joining us.
It is.
Obviously not the setting we want. Go ahead, BJ. Oh.
You have any hair, JJ? I don't think anybody here has any hair.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Okay, never mind. All right.
now he's got a little bit still. He's holding on to a little bit
Ruined
there.
it. All right.
That's why I took it off my face, because I got it.
Okay. Mine all fell down here. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, you guys have a good evening, and thanks again for sharing your knowledge of and your love and passion for brewing beer. And yeah, GBO 2021, we'll all be in Emporia, and we'll have to all sit down and have a beer then for sure in Emporia.
Can't wait.
Absolutely.
Roast.
Cheers, gentlemen.
Cheers, guys.